Greetings everyone, my name is Jonathan Bailey. I am for the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com, and today we're gonna be a little bit of a rebel. You see, while most of YouTube is discussing the recent monetization controversy, today we're going to go over the controversy from a few years ago and discuss in detail the YouTube copyright process. This process is highly controversial, very complicated, and with actually two separate processes rolled into one. So we've got a lot to go over if we're going to get through all this in a reasonable amount of time. Now, the first thing we need to discuss is that there are actually two processes that YouTube abides by. The first is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act process, aka the process they have to do under law, and their own Content ID process, which is separate, not required under law, and therefore is somewhat more arbitrary, I guess we'll say, in how it is executed. But let's start by looking at what YouTube is required to do under the law. This is the fundamental of the DMCA process, and by the way, this image, this whole flowchart, and another one we're going to do a little bit later, both are from the Electronic Frontier Foundation and are licensed under a Creative Commons by license. I'll give a link to the full file and full page it's on in the description, A, because it's the right thing to do, and B, because they're actually pretty good guides for dealing with this stuff. But anyways, this is the DMCA process as it is written out in the law. If a rights holder finds something that they find objectionable on YouTube, basically something they think is infringing, they file what is known as a DMCA notice. This notice has several requirements under the law, and if the notice meets it, then YouTube, if they wish to ensure that they are held not liable for the infringing content, have to remove it. Now, the user, once that video is taken down, can then either accept the takedown or they can file a counter notice. Now, if a counter notice is filed, the rights holder has the option of either filing a lawsuit and getting an injunction preventing it from being re-uploaded. They basically have 2 weeks to do that, or the video will be restored. Now, that's not to say the rights holder can't file the lawsuit at another time and once again get that injunction, but that comes later. Now, that's the crux of what YouTube is required under the law to do. They do not have to do any proactive policing, which we know they do. All they have to do is receive notices of copyright infringement and react expeditiously to them. Now, they do have one other requirement, and it's actually this. This is actual text from the law. I know it's difficult to read. I apologize. But they do have to have a policy for dealing with repeat infringers. And I'll just read the text for you. It says, well, and then also the highlighted text at least, they have to have a policy that provides for the termination in appropriate circumstances of subscribers and account holders of the service provider system or network who are repeat infringers. That is literally all the law says. That's it. That one little highlighted sentence was everything the law says about repeat infringers. There's no mention of 3 strikes, 2 strikes, 5 strikes, deleting account, rolling off strikes, none of that. They just have to have a process. Now, there has been a case really recently that dealt with this, and it was this one here. This is the Escape Media Group, better known as Grooveshark. Now, you'll recall that they were recently, well, not so recently, it's been a couple of years now, but they were shuttered due to a lawsuit by the record labels. And one of the issues the record labels challenged them on was that they, according to the labels, did not have an adequate process for dealing with repeat infringers. And they backed this up by showing that many users had hundreds of notices and very, very few of them actually were shuttered. Now, the problem Escape Media, aka Grooveshark, had in this area was they had no effective means of tracking who was uploading anything, so they had no way of doing of implementing such a policy. The result of that was they were, in part because of this, there was also the fact that their employees were doing a lot of the uploading, which is a big no-no under the law. But long story short, they were found liable for the infringement and were forced to close. But the thing about it is this. The court was very lenient in saying that they just simply had to have a policy. YouTube's whole copyright strike system, that's their invention. And long story short of it is, it's not something they have to do so long as they do terminate repeat infringers. So this is how they've chosen to hand it. I know, like, for example, Tumblr has their own 3-strike system and so on and so forth. They have to have a policy, but the law does not specify what it is. Now, that is what, like I said, what YouTube is required under the law to do. And those copyright strikes, as we know, can be very, very harmful to a YouTube channel. And in fact, in a little bit, we're going to show kind of sort of what happened to one of my channels after such a strike. Because I'm going to tie all this together with a little story at the very end of this video. But now let's discuss Content ID. This is the Content ID process. Once again, image from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. As you might note and observe, this is a much more complicated flowchart. Now, Content ID is an automated system. It works on matching the content of the video, or in my case, apparently the title and tags of the video, but we're getting to that also. Long story short is, after a Content ID claim, a video may have restrictions placed on it. Those restrictions can be pretty much anything that the rights holder who is participating in Content ID chooses. The rights holder can opt to have the video removed. The rights holder can opt to take monetization of the video. They can opt to restrict what countries it will be shown in, and so on and so forth. The user can accept those usage restrictions and just walk away, or they can dispute the claim. Now, at this point, when a claim is simply disputed, it is the rights holder and the rights holder alone who makes the decision here. The rights holder can choose to release the claim and go, whoops, obviously Content ID made a goof, we don't really wish to claim this video, or they can uphold the claim. Now, if they uphold the claim, the user can then appeal, and this appeal does go to YouTube. Now, to appeal this, you have to have your account in good standing. You can only do so many appeals at once. There's a bunch of stuff there. But if you do the appeal, then the rights holder once again can release the claim, or they have the choice. If YouTube does find that the video didn't really qualify for Content ID, the rights holder can then file a DMCA takedown notice, and then we begin this process. So you can see the big deal here. So it's easy to see why this is confusing, because according to YouTube, something like 98% of all copyright claims are handled through this Content ID process. The DMCA process deals with the remainder ones, and it's easy to see why. All the major rights holders have put their content into Content ID. This is theoretically a win-win for YouTube and for the rights holders. The rights holders don't have to spend the resources sending DMCA notices, and YouTube doesn't have to spend all the resources, receiving them and processing them. It theoretically is a win-win, but it does kind of get users caught in the crossfire. And I'm going to show you how with this. Now, I have another channel I used to post on, I used to be very active on, called Garbage Horror. Me and my girlfriend, we would do reviews of very bad horror movies. We had a good time with it, and every once in a while we talked about other things that amused us. Well, one of the things we talked about that amused us was a TV show called Beakmans World. You may remember this if you're about my age. It was like going on around the same time as Bill Nye the Science Guy was on the air. But anyways, when we moved our channel from blip.tv, yes, that's how old this channel is, we took it and we moved it to YouTube. Almost immediately after I uploaded our Beakmans World video, I got this. This is a notice that they were removing monetization of the video, and the reason was it matched on Content ID. Now, this was extremely interesting to me because this video didn't actually use any clips from Beakmans World. In fact, the only thing from Beakmans World at all was a press still that we used as part of the thumbnail. That was it. Or actually, it was when we used in the thumbnail. It was a title card. That was it. That was the only thing we used. The whole video was just 10 minutes of Crystal and I sitting there talking about one of our favorite shows. The biggest crime this video made was that it was terminally boring, frankly. But anyways, long story short of it, we disputed it kind of quickly. Then I moseyed away from the account. I moved on to other things. We kind of stopped doing it. But I logged back in the next year to try and do some videos about haunted attraction reviews, something else we do with that channel. And then I found about this. This is a DMCA notice that was filed against the video, and it was removed because of it. And this actually really wrecked my channel in a lot of nasty ways. You can see the date up in the upper right hand corner. The Content ID claim, I'll put it back up, was from 4/30/2012. The DMCA notice came over a year later. And by that point, like I said, we'd long abandoned the channel. I was just coming back in 2014, actually, to do the haunted attraction reviews. And when I did, I found that a ton of restrictions had been placed on my account. I could not upload videos only 15 minutes. I could not monetize. I had to go to YouTube copyright school. Yeah, I had to go to YouTube copyright school. I don't mean to sound smug, but come on. Come on. The result of it, though, was we managed to file a counter notice, get the video restored, go through YouTube copyrights. Well, in the end, we didn't miss anything. This isn't a channel that's producing money. We're not making any bank off this, so there's no real harm done to us other than our little hobby, our little couple therapy every Halloween season had a bit of a speed bump put into it for a year, so it wasn't a huge deal. It would be a much bigger deal for larger channels. But in the end, one of the things that was frustrating was even after we got the video restored, for the longest time, we could not monetize that video, even though the content, even though we had filed the counter notice, we'd gone through the motions, it had been restored, still couldn't monetize it. And I was going to show you a picture of that, but apparently sometime in the last few months, it changed. And as you can see, we have the green dollar sign on the video now. So thank you. I have no idea what happened. I actually logged back into my email to try to find out what happened. I have not a clue. But long story short, that's kind of how the process works. You can see with the Content ID process, we had a claim, we disputed it. Apparently it was released, but later on they filed a DMCA notice, and then we went through this process and got the video restored with a counter notice. All in all, it's a bit of a mess, and a lot of it is of YouTube's design, because the law actually, like I said, keeps a very simple process for handling copyright disputes, but YouTube, in an understandable desire to try to streamline and make this process less burdensome for themselves, have created kind of a mess for all their users. I don't have an easy answer here. A site that's as big as YouTube with a staff as small as YouTube has, I mean, yes, they have a big staff, but compared to the number of videos uploaded, it's pretty small. There are definitely copyright challenges. There are no easy answers too, so I'm sympathetic. And even with my experience, I'm not incredibly bitter about the process. I mean, in the end, it did work out for me, and no real harm was done to me. Still, it also does make me sympathetic to users who are bit by this process. All in all, that is the basics of how it works. And like I said, I'm not going into all the fine details about when you lose monetization and when you can get it back and so forth, because a lot of that, frankly, is a mystery to even me. So there you have it. Hopefully that helps explain just a little bit about it. Like I said, the DMCA process, which also deals with the copyright strikes, the Content ID process, which is the automatic matches, which can cost monetization and limit the access to the video to various countries, are two separate processes that unfortunately can confuse and confound even the most copyright savvy of YouTubers. Well, on that note, everyone, I appreciate you taking this time with me. Thank you very much for joining me. And until next time, this is Jonathan Bailey, signing off.